All right, you guys, welcome back to episode number 2122, Google Review Red Alert, the new rules of Google Reviews, why your current strategy might be getting you banned. So Google has just quietly updated their review guidelines. And if you are using the same strategy that a lot of people have been using from 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago, then you might be putting your practice at risk. So here's what's going on. So Google is starting to crack down on what they perceive as fake or manipulated reviews. And what's interesting is they're not just deleting the reviews, which was the case before. Now they are starting to go as far as flagging entire profiles. So if they see this happen often enough, your profile might in fact get flagged. So I wanted to share a few different updates today to make sure that your team isn't accidentally breaking the new rules or intentionally breaking the new rules. We don't want either of those. So here are some of the old things that used to be okay, but now are not. So many practices used to recommend rewarding staff members for getting their name mentioned in a 5-star review. Don't forget to mention my name when you post a review. Make sure you include Linda when you leave a review, things like that. But it's interesting because Google has recently come out and explicitly stated that they don't want to see any of that. They forbid that type of thing from happening. It says merchants requesting that staff solicit reviews that include specific content, including content that identifies a staff member. And so why are they doing this? Well, the reason they are doing this is because they want to move away from any review that feels contrived or coached or incentivized. Their whole goal is to have those reviews come voluntarily, to come naturally, to be organic and occur organically just as people are going about doing business with you. So the thing to remember is to stop doing those things, to stop incentivizing team members to get their name specifically mentioned. So what can you do? Well, instead, I would pivot so that you're not rewarding an individual for getting their name mentioned, but really just rewarding the whole team for reaching certain milestones, for example. So when you hit 500 reviews, we do a team lunch, or we go out to dinner, or we have a fun activity or something like that. This keeps the culture very positive without violating that specific content rule. Okay. So another thing that has been so rampant, and I've been on this train for a long time, is the QR code trap. We love our QR codes, right? It makes everything so much easier when you can point your smartphone at it and magically it pulls up the website that you're directing it to, right? In this case, Google Business Profile. But that can now be a major red flag for Google spam filters. But let me give you, there's some context around that. So the issues with that specifically, it's not really the use of a QR code, but it's more where that occurs. So the first issue is the IP address clash. So if multiple people, let's just paint the picture. So you have on your front desk, maybe you've printed out a sign that sits on your front desk and displays a QR code that people can scan, and it takes them to your profile. You can leave a review right there in the office. Easy peasy, right? Or possibly you've printed out a QR code on your business card or appointment card, and you give that to a patient, ask them to scan it right away and leave a review. The problem with that is that if multiple people are doing that from the same, let's say, Wi-Fi or location, IP address, then Google sees that as a cluster of activity from one single IP address and flags that as fake. I don't think it doesn't happen every time, but if it happens enough, it raises a red flag, right? And so it can get some of these reviews revoked. And I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen with practices that are doing this. They're doing everything right. It's just that the location on where this is occurring. And that's typically inside the office, which unfortunately is the best time to ask for a review. It's really, really terrible because it's easy to leave one after they've had a great experience. The longer they wait, the less likely they are to leave a review. So it's a challenge, right? You want to make sure that you're doing it quick enough so that they still have that good feeling that hasn't dissipated too much, but also give them time to move away from the office to do that. So we'll talk about maybe a solution here in just a second. But the other issue is that Google is starting to look at the interaction that a person has with your profile on Google. So if they, or even your website. So if a patient, let's just say a patient scans one of your codes, leaves a review, but hasn't ever been to your website, hasn't ever done a search to see your Google business profile and clicked around on your profile, then Google sees a very low trust level with that user because they haven't engaged with your practice. And that can also raise a potential red flag. So those are the two issues. It's the location where they leave the reviews. And if there are a lot of people leaving a review, a lot of different people leaving a review at that same location, same IP address. And then if the user has had limited or zero activity already, zero engagement with your profile, your business profile, or your website, that could trigger a flag. So what can we do about this? Well, so the change or the pivot is more of what I'm going to call a search first solution. So instead of directing them on your QR code straight to your Google business profile where they can just leave a review. I know it's hard for me to say this because I love reducing friction when it comes to patients and patient interaction. But the kind of the new way to do this is to link your QR code to a branded search. So when I say branded search, that means a search for your practice inside Google. So for example, that would look like Mark Thackeray Dental, Mark Thackeray Dentist, something like that is going to pull up your practice right at the top. So you copy a link to those search results, essentially. So all they have to do is click yours on the top, but then they'll click on your profile and then they can click on reviews and leave a review that way. It includes a few additional steps, but what it does is it forces the patient to interact with your brand online first. So you see the click through. Now they have to click on the profile itself and then do another click or two to get to the reviews, and then possibly one more click to leave a review. And so in the end, they've engaged with the profile. They see that Google sees that as interaction, and it builds trust, right? Plus the benefit of that, beyond just the review and the trust signal, so that Google actually accepts the review or is more likely to accept the review, I should say, is there's a lot of SEO benefits to it as well. Because if Google sees high number or high volume of branded searches, that tells Google that you are a prominent, trusted authority in your area. You're someone that would make sense to show high in the search results because other people are doing it, right? So that's my recommendation now, based on what we've just recently heard from Google, is you could still do the QR code. Still love that idea because it does streamline the interaction, but instead of linking it directly to your Google business profile, leave that to a branded search, the branded search results, so that it encourages the patient to then click on your profile a few times, engage with the brand, engage with the practice before leaving that review. The other thing is to do that, encourage patients to do that once they get home. And that pains me to say that because, again, the longer you wait, the less likely they are to do it. But I feel like it's more important to do that away from the office and avoid that IP address clash than to make it easier for them that way. So yeah, I know it pains me to say those things, but it is going to be helpful that way. So you want to, again, link your QR code to a branded search result that has your brand at the top of the list so that they can click through and gain some trust, quote unquote trust or engagement that way before they leave the review. And then second, to encourage them to do that once they get home. Just hold on to this card. Once you get home, if you wouldn't mind scanning this QR code, you're going to see our business. Just click on that, and then you'll be able to see the reviews. Click on that and leave a review. That would be amazing and be a huge help to us. Keep it simple. Again, let them know how much of a benefit that is to you and how much they're helping you out. People love to help others out. So that's a good little tip as well. But this will help you protect your reputation. The worst thing is it pains me when I see a practice who's losing reviews because they're not doing it the right way. And that is so terrible. And the worst thing that could happen is you actually get flagged for doing this. So very, very important. These reviews have a massive, massive influence on your SEO and on conversion. So you want to make sure that you're doing these reviews. If you want help generating reviews in an effective way that checks all the boxes for Google, we're not doing anything sketchy or anything like that. It's very effective. Let me know. Our team helps practices do this on a regular basis. They're seeing our numbers go up and up and up, and it improves their overall rating score if it's low. But more importantly, it sends all those trust signals back to Google that your practice is one that should be mentioned high in the search results, that it's a very reputable practice, that people are having a good experience when they go there. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Contact my assistant, Maria. That's maria@markthackeray.com. And we can start that discussion and show you what it's all about, see if it's a good fit for you. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this quick, short episode. And if you have any questions, let me know. And otherwise, we'll talk to you next week.